All right, here we are, part 2 of NZ7's set review. This is NZ7 Toughest in the World. In the first part, we covered the styled cards, and in this one we're going to cover the freestyle and personality cards. It's another fully large set, so instead of sitting here for 3 hours with the whole video, we're breaking it into 2 parts. This one should be a little shorter though. There's not a ton of freestyle cards and not a ton of personalities in this set, so we'll just get right into it. This first one here is Hatchiak's Android Assault. Spoiler alert, there's a Hatchiak card. Physical attack doing +5 power stages of damage. If in either your last attacker attacks phase or defender defends phase, you used a card with Android in the title, you may raise your anger 2 levels or gain 5 power stages. So, physical attack +5. A freestyle for +5 is solid damage output just in general, especially in just freestyle. But then, in your attack phase or defense phase, if you use an Android card, you can get some bonus for it. Importantly to note that using a card is also using the personality power of a card with Android in the title. So if you also performed an attack with one of your androids, or used a block if you had one, or used just a power, those would all trigger this as well. So you get a good attack that triggers pretty likely because Android decks are going to have a solid number of either Android cards in their deck or an Android power that they can use to sort of set this up for their next action and get you a little bit of anger to level, which Android decks are not incredible at unless they're like the 2 specific ones that are kind of doing it, or get some power stages, which is good because a lot of Android decks are kind of energy focused too. Just a decent little overall value card. It works for anyone, but as just a beefy attack. But if you're an Android, you can get some real mileage out of it.
Yeah, so this will obviously slide into the Android package with 16 smiles and 18 stare down and 13 prepared stance and all the core ones. This helping gain anger is very good because, like Derek said, most Android decks don't gain a lot of anger, so this is a way to help them kind of jump up in anger. It's super easy to trigger. It's searchable by all the Android effects. Physical +5 is nice damage, and if you don't want to level or you're already at your max level or whatever, gaining 5 stages can be very beneficial. It can let you throw another attack. It can let you play better defense, or at the very least, it can power you up so that this attack does more damage. Overall, this is a card I really like in any Android deck, basically, that's trying to use the package. If you're all in energy, maybe this doesn't quite make the cut. Maybe you just play 1 or 2 of it. But any kind of hybrid deck or any physical deck is going to want max copies of these. The next card is Majin Babbidi's Dark Magic. This is an energy combat. It's Majin only. Energy attack, raise your anger 1. You may search your life deck or discard pile for a level 1 ally and place it into play at 3 above. If used by Majin Babbidi, you may search your life deck for an ally of any level instead. So, obviously what this is it's a Majin only energy attack that is for ally decks. There's not a lot of Majin ally decks floating around necessarily, but Babbidi is of course the key personality for that style of deck. This card helps you in decks that play Majin Buu's Energy Spray. Majin Buu's Energy Spray wants you to have Majin only energy combats, which if you really look deep into the card pool, most of them are terrible. So having this card as a way you could play 1 or 2 allies with this and play a couple copies of this, and they can trigger your Energy Spray, it can get your 1 or 2 allies out. You can get a lot of value out of this card. I really like this card. I like what it does. I feel like Energy Raise Your Anger 1 is a fair enough floor. And, if you're going to play this in your deck, you probably got 2 to 3 allies minimum. So you're going to be able to get it. Obviously, in a Babbidi deck or in a Majin-specific ally deck, this card's wildly impactful and very strong.
Yeah, one thing I want to bring up is the very last sentence where you get to get an ally of any level instead. It is, you still have to, of course, follow, deck building rules and stuff. So Babbidi doesn't have a level 5, so the highest level ally you can have in your deck is a 2. But this lets you grab level 2 allies even if you're still on level 1. Which can open up some doors for additional powers and stuff like that. And, who knows, maybe there's a level 5 Babbidi someday and it grabs level 3s. But for now, it just grabs 1s and 2s, and Babbidi just wants that. It gives you anger, which Babbidi also wants, because Babbidi levels quite well, and so a little bit extra speed to do so is more than welcome in that deck. Okay. So this one's a little bit long-winded, but we'll get through it. It's Elder Kai's Help Drill. While this drill is in play, your cards named the Patara Earrings and the Fusion Dance cannot leave play via your opponent's card effects. When entering combat, you may search your life deck for the Patara Earrings or the Fusion Dance and place it into play. For the remainder of the game, when a fused personality leaves play, it is returned to the Sensei deck instead of removed from the game. So I'll start at the very bottom there. We've mentioned it in some of the other videos before too, when we were talking about Red Mighty Mask's Secret, stuff like that, where Gotenks and all the, that's really the easiest of the fusions to do, but any of the fusions, one of their big difficulties is that once you use them up, they're just gone and you can't even try to fuse again. This at least lets you put them back into your Sensei deck and maybe get another chance to do so. The rest of this card effect, like I said, there's a lot of words here, but really it's just naming two different cards 2 different times, but you just protect your fusion card. A huge problem with doing like the Vegito strategy is you go through all the work of getting the ally out, getting the Patara out, getting it attached, fusing, and then they just remove it on combat and you defuse and you lose your Vegito and you're just host. So this says that those are a little bit more protected, and then it lets you enter combat and search that card out and put it into play. It is a non-combat, so this lets you not have to sort of set up a turn of playing it, passing, and hoping it survives, or playing it and entering a card down. This card will let you just enter with it as your kind of first action. Or if you're going, if you're on defense, your opponent gets an action at least, but you get one opportunity to just have it in play without having to dig it out of your deck, which helps a lot. The strategy for fusion is really, 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 really bad. So anything that we can do to help power that up is good. It's one of the reasons that this last effect is for the rest of the game. It needs like that much help. I think this card does help the strategy pretty substantially, but I think it's still so difficult to do it that this one still doesn't see a lot of play. But if you're going to try a fusion package that isn't Red Mighty Mask Secret or like Gogeta, if you're just trying to play like regular Gotenks or regular Vegito, you have to play this card.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the case. The unfortunate problem with the fusion cards is how fragile all the combo is, like Derek said. You're going to need an ally and you're going to need this non-combat. And then as far as the Patara earrings go, that's even worse because then they can just discard the earrings and your fusion goes away. So you work all this time to get Vegito out or to get, Den Goku or something out. And then they're just like, oh, okay, well, I'll, discard your non-combat and then your fusion's done. So having this card is kind of like a resist counter, kind of like a first wall of defense for the Patara earrings is really the place where I think this is the best. I don't know about the fusion dance. Like it's a neat concept, but in practice it's been really hard to pull off. Where this card shines for me is in a Goku deck where you might have Vegeta plus maybe Dende or Hercule, maybe 2 of them, and then also play the Vegeta that works with Gogeta so that you can fuse into multiple different things, right? So that way you've got a bunch of avenues, a bunch of outs to get the fusion going. And once you can do that, the fusion is really strong. Fusion is a strong effect. The problem's always been the cost is so high and the setup is so high. So this does help that a lot. If you want to be a fusion deck, an all-in fusion deck, Abby, you're going to want this card. All right, the next card we got is Power Down. This is a physical combat. It stops a physical attack. If your main personality is above level 1, you may have them lose a personality level to have this card stay on the table to be used one more time this combat. So this is a very simple effect. It's a physical block. That's all it does. But if you are higher than level 1, you can use this to de-level yourself. So a lot of decks in this game like to stay on level 1. And, so it's kind of a strategy for a lot of... to play against a lot of decks to have ways to level your opponent off of level 1. So if that's the case and that's what they do to you and they level you off level 1 and you want to be on level 1, this card can get you back there. Also, if you're a deck like Unstable or, Saiyan MBS or something that levels a lot and levels up and down, this card can actually just block a lot of physicals. This card can effectively be a stop all if if you're high enough level already. And while you're popping down levels, you can use your personality powers for those levels. So, obviously you go to 5 above when you lower a level, But if this card stays, if you're at level 3 and you use this card to block an attack and you go to level 2, you can use your level 2 power. And then if they throw it again, you can lower it again to keep it in play again. So at that point, your opponent's just not going to want to attack you. You're going to get in a spot where you use this the first time and you de-level and it's on the table again, and your opponent's like, well, if I throw another attack, they'll just de-level again, use another energy attack at me from their level 2 power or something. So this card can set up a lot of cool turns. It's really strong defensively. And look, on its bottom end, it's a physical block, which is fine. Like, physical blocks are okay. You got to play some physical blocks. If you're an MP that really wants to be on level 1, I love this card. If you're playing a Vinegar or somebody whose level 1 power is really good and their level 2 power, level 3 power is not good, Yajirobe, something like that, this is a card you would play in those kind of decks. Also, if you're going to gain a lot of anger, a lot of levels, it's a card you can play in those decks too. So you got a couple different angles you can shoot this one from. This is not an auto included in every deck or anything like that. It is fairly narrow, but the decks that want it love it.
Yeah, it's one of those that was, like, when we read it, we're like, oh, it's like a thematically cool thing. Let's see if it like tests, because it seems sort of vanilla, But as we played it, we're like, oh my god, this is really fun. The ways that you can utilize this are quite varied. Nick brought up the one I was curious if he was going to mention was the putting yourself back to level 1 decks, because the sort of, for me at least, like when you read it, the obvious thing that this does is like, I'm on level 4 and now I'm on 3 and then 2 and then 1 and I stopped a bunch of attacks and got more powers. That's fine there, but there are plenty of decks that like we made Frieza's Deception, which just levels your opponent, and we've talked about how good that card is and how everyone should be playing it. And because that card is so good, cards like this card that can then stop an attack to put yourself back to the spot you wanted to be on have a lot of value too. So I think that part of this card, or that value element of this card, gets overlooked a lot. I think a lot of people just think, oh, this is for like Red or Sand, MBS. But I think it's also for decks that just struggle if they hit 2. We made a Raditz who has like a really good level 1 and a terrible Saiyan Saga level 2. This is a good card in that. Nick plays Jace a lot, and if Jace goes to 3, he feels really, really bad. So he can like stop it to go back to the 2, which is exactly where he wants to be. Things like that. So it's just, I think this is a really interesting card. Like Nick said, there's not a ton of decks that will play it, but when you need it and you're the deck that does, it's felt super, super good. Okay, so we've got Hercule's Megaton Punch here. This is, I'll read it first here. It's a physical attack doing 6 power stages of damage, solid base physical there. Until the end of the turn, any cards in your hand, discard pile, or life deck cannot be discarded, removed, or put into your life deck by your opponent's non-damage card effects. And it's got a parenthetical there that says if your opponent would use a card effect that discards a card from your hand or shuffles them into your deck, you can discard this card to stop that effect and then use the secondary effects of this card. So this card basically just says whether I'm going to enter and throw it as an attack, or if you're going to enter and try to discard it from my hand. For the rest of the turn, mostly black is not going to affect the important places that my cards stay. And that's really important. Mill is super strong in black, discard is obviously strong, and black is very, very present in this meta. It's still this year even the most represented deck in the league. It was the same last year and the year before. So it's we were feeling like there was a need for some kind of silver bullet type answer to this sort of overwhelming presence of black within the meta, and this does a really good job of it. It is sort of a spiritual spin-off of I might get this wrong, I think it's called Hercule's Crescent Punch. It's a GT card that does roughly the same thing, and it started as kind of like a port of that, but we tweaked it a little bit to fit like the power level of Score and not GT, blah 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 blah. Long lore story there, but it started as a GT card that was also pretty relevant, got powered down a little bit, I think, got powered up in a couple of ways, and fits sort of the stuff that black does in this game a little more, and answers it pretty well. And to be honest, like, you're going to play this if you feel like your deck has a weakness to black. If you feel like you're, or if you feel like there's going to be a heavy representation of black in the event you're going to play in, this is a card you would run. But even if you're not playing a black deck or something like that, if your opponent just plays one of the various cards that can discard a card from your hand, which there's kind of in most colors one of those. If there's something that will put cards from your discard pile somewhere else. There are plenty of cards. Majibu's Heel Kick. There's Prep Crashes. There's a million cards there too that will take cards out of your discard pile and remove them, and that's not a great thing to have happen either. This can prevent that. So there's just a ton of uses for this card that aren't necessarily just for black, but it is, as you can tell just reading it, obviously kind of an answer card to black. It's been awesome where it's been good. If your deck if you feel like your deck needs that to kind of overcome the battle with a black meta, it's a welcome addition.
Yeah, so, importantly, most people are going to have either Confrontation or Android 18 stare down their deck, and this does stop that, which is a big swing. Also, on its floor, I like to talk about floors for various cards. The physical for 6 stages is like a perfectly reasonable card to play in any physical deck. So if you're playing a physical deck, especially one that's not great against black, like a red deck or Orange World Games or something like that, this is a fine choice, and it just slots right into those. And even when you're not playing black, this feels okay. And like I said, you'll occasionally catch your opponents, like Derek said, Prep Crash, or like I said, Stare Down or something like that, and just get a feel good win out of that. Otherwise, physical for 6 stages is just fine. Like, the floor is good enough to play, and the ceiling is obviously completely wrecking black's world. So, if you're a pure physical deck, you can definitely consider main decking this card. If you're not, but you're afraid of black, this is a good Sensei deck option. You just bring in your copies against black deck, and when you draw it against the black deck, it feels real strong. Alright, the next card on the list is Hercule Smackdown. So this is a Tough Enough only, Villains only card. It is a physical doing 4+ stages. If successful or used by Hercule, shuffle up to 5 Tough Enough only cards in your discard pile into your life deck and remove from game after use. So there's a couple things here. This was one of the cards I asked for this set, was a Villains only physical attack, because there is not a single really good one in the entire game. Physical +4 is fine. If successful or used by Hercule, shuffle 5 Tough Enough cards. So this is a Tough Enough card. You're going to play Tough Enough cards in your Tough Enough deck. Even if you're a pure physical beats deck, you're going to play Vegeta's Percussion Concussion and some various physical attacks that are real strong. There's some multi-use attacks like Teen and Yamcha Strike, and of course there's all your styled attacks. If you're on a style, you play your Smackdown or something like that a lot of the time. So you're always going to have enough cards to get the shuffle effect in. The if successful is it's not ideal, but it is a physical attack. You're going to throw a lot of them, and shuffling 5 cards back in is not backbreaking. So a lot of times this one's going to get through. The if used by Hercule effect, you will that'll come a little more to fruition here shortly. But overall, this is just a good physical attack and tough enough to play if you're a villain. If you're a villain, you're on a physical beats deck, especially if you're freestyle and you're working the drill package with Tree of Might, something like Broly's Evil Drill to go get this. It can be really strong. It can be a really strong effect.
Yeah, Nick had been asking for a tutorable physical attack off of Evil Drill for a while, and we still, even as much as we were trying to get one in, we still almost didn't. And then as we kind of pieced together the rest of the set, you'll see in a minute here, it sort of came to make sense, like what this was for, and that sticking villains only on this was like sort of 2 birds, 1 stone. And I think this card's very cool. Even if, like Nick said, even if you're going to only hit a Percussion Concussion, or even like you had to take 6 life cards of damage, and card 6 was Are You Tough Enough or something, you just put that card in your back in your deck, have 100 new endurance, or another chance to level. Most decks in Tough Enough, or not most, but a lot of decks in Tough Enough will play Are You Tough Enough? Even if they're not going to use it, they're just playing it for the endurance. So just putting that back is good. I think this card's cool. Having Smackdown in the title seems really irrelevant right now, but as we get into this kind of next card here, you'll see why that's important. Well, sorry, not quite next card. This one here is Vegeta Badman. This card was asked for a long time too. People have been asking for a Vegeta level 1 that was just sort of like generically good and not as like focused into being a specific thing. Like Super Saiyan Vegeta, re-putting Lurking back into your deck or whatever every turn. Pretty good. And the deck that wants that loves it. But you don't need it all the time. If you're playing Vegeta the Puppet, you can do that too for kind of the energy deck sort of thing as like another flavor to the Vegeta Freestyle deck. It works in like a blue Vegeta energy deck too. So there's a couple places that one could go. I think it goes in less now even than it did before, since the D-Power rule has taken away the double power rule. Now Vegeta the Puppet doesn't just like auto go first, it's like a 50% go first. So some of the value of that has gone away too. So I think he even sees a little bit less representation. This one though is just sort of normal level. It's not particularly dedicated to being Vegeta or anything, and it just works to let Vegeta play a regular style deck a lot better. So it's got a power that stops a physical attack, and then you gain X stages where X is your PUR. Then for the remainder of combat, your attacks gain, if stopped, raise your anger 1 level. So he's got a 2 PUR. With the Tokuwaza, it's 3, so you gain 3 stages off of this, which is enough to throw almost every energy attack in the game if you wanted to, which is good, because even if you're not playing like Vegeta free, there's a good chance you're playing some of the Vegeta energy attacks because they're just good. If stopped, raise your anger 1 is very on brand for Vegeta. If he can't be winning, he gets kind of mad about it. So that works there. But it's also great because any like Vegeta deck worth its salt really like wants to get to Vegeta settled down, or even up to Dark Prince, etc. This is a level that just sort of, if you don't want to do the whole lurking gimmick thing as the whole thing your deck does, this is a great way to just say, okay, I'm playing Vegeta in any style. It's going to feel good having just a block that gains me some stages, and then being able to get to settle down quite reliably, and then just sort of camp there. It feels really good. What ends up happening for a lot of decks at that point is you have these builds that are sort of settled down or Super Saiyan God Vegeta, as opposed to like level 1 or Super Saiyan God. And I think it's just sort of opened the door to letting Vegeta play a lot more colors than he was able to before. He's got a good power level too. It drops, kind of quickly. He goes through a couple of stage brackets there, but at full, 1.9 is a good cap, and I don't know, this is a card people asked for a long time. I was really happy to finally get to make it. It's also crazy that like Pink Shirt Vegeta doesn't have a card yet, so it's fun to get to make that too.
Yeah, so one thing about this league is that Vegeta is one of the favorites, if not the favorite personality from the show. So him having a lot of situational level 1s is kind of a frowned upon thing when like Goku, for example, has a catch-all level 1. So getting Vegeta a catch-all level 1 like this is good. Stops of physical power is just as generically good as you can get. Like, you're never feeling like it's broken, but it always feels good. It feels so much better than any of his other levels. The gain X stages for your PUR, obviously that's going to be 3 like 90% of the time, which is fine. Stops the physical gain 3 stages is a good power. And then the raising your anger, like Derek said, it's a good way to get settled down, which is one of the best level 2s in the game. Just between the physical block and settle down's ability to add +2 life cards, it makes Vegeta a prime candidate for any energy deck. As an MP, which is great because he also gets access to Vegeta's Jolting Slash as a 4 of, and there's plenty of Vegeta cards you can play. Actually, the last card we're going to talk about today, with the champion card from this past Worlds, another card that's going to fit great into any Vegeta energy deck. Vegeta's he's become like a staple MP that you can just slap in a deck and feel good about, which is great because people want to play Vegeta, and like for the first time, it really feels like you can. This is a great personality. One of my favorite cards to test in the set because it just always felt like it did exactly what you needed it to do, without ever feeling like it was too good. So, yeah, if you guys want to play Vegeta, hey, this is the one for you. It's great. You can play him in Standard. You can play him in Tough Enough. You can play him wherever you want. It's a great MP, and so glad to see this included in the game.
There he is.
So the next one is Hercule Unstoppable. Obviously, he's all the way in B because he's Hercule. He has a power up rating of 1 because he's Hercule. So, it's parenthetical. If this card is in your MP stack, cards with Smackdown in the title do not count against your Tokuwasa. That means you can play all the styled Smackdowns in your deck, no matter what style you are. Hercule can play and use villains only cards. That's of course been his trope since the score days. He gets to play and use villains only cards as well as hero only cards. And then attacks you perform with tough enough only cards deal plus 3 stages of damage. So, what is Hercule? Well, Hercule is a tough enough physical beatdown character, which is funny because he's in B. But Hercule gets a lot of range. He gets to play a lot of different cards. Getting to play heroes and villains only cards, of course, just like in original score, means you can play stare downs and confros, which is great, hand destruction type effects. There's a lot of strong heroes only and villains only cards these days, so Hercule's ability to play all of them is a huge benefit. The Smackdown cards are a little more niche, but they're pretty simple. If you can set them up to be unstoppable, they're very strong. So what you're going to find when you build Hercule decks is that you're going to build decks that will set up 2 or 3 of them to be unstoppable, and those are the ones you're going to play. And you know what? If you need to fill in some more slots there at the end, you might play a couple more, because you do want to just load up on tough enough only cards. You want to play cards that are physical plus 4, that's tough enough only card, is a physical plus 7 with Hercule. So, that's definitely a great place to be in. Hercule's ability to use both heroes and villains only cards means you can versatile his deck up a lot. You can do a lot of different things with it. And if you'll remember from Hercule Smackdown, he gets to auto shuffle 5 cards in with that one. So that's pretty strong for him, especially because in a Hercule deck with this MP, you're going to be playing a lot of tough enough cards. You can get all the way into I play kick him when he's down, and everybody's personal favorite tough enough crush. You'll have to look that one up probably, but there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the Hercule MP. Overall, he's probably not the strongest, but man, I don't know that we would want to print a Hercule stack that's gonna warp the game or anything. But he's totally playable, and he's a good time. You're not winning tournaments with this MP, but you can get some overkills and you can do some real damage, and beating people with Hercule is real fun.
Yeah, man, it's it's Hercule, right? It's you gotta know you're part of the meme if you're playing the legend himself, and the Smackdown cards, like Nick said, they're all sort of fine. If you can, if your deck can set one up to be good in normal style decks, then okay. And even then, most of the time you kind of can't, so they don't get played a ton. But it just it's really funny to have Hercule, this fake hero wrestler guy, throwing all these Smackdown moves. It's making them a little better is good. It isn't just the Smackdown cards, it's any of your tough enough cards. So your percussion, concussions, and stuff that you would be playing are just going to be better cards. I think that he is equal parts awesome and not good. But if you're willing to just play something that's a little silly and know that that's what you're doing, Hercule Unstoppable is the MP for you. I love the design of this card. I love that it exists. It was really fun to make and to test. If you're the kind of person who can just wear the fun hat for a night, this is the deck you should play. Okay, so that takes us out of the style cards and sort of individual levels. The next sort of chunk of stuff that we're going to get into is the MPs. So as we've always kind of done, we're going to group them together and then sort of talk about it at the end. So getting into the first one, we've got Launch. So Launch, fan favorite, popular character. People have been asking for some Dragon Ball content for a long time. People have been asking for more playable female characters for a long time. So it was kind of overdue to make something like this. It was really fun to do so. If you know anything about the lore of the show, Launch has these sneezing fits where she sneezes and turns blonde and then is very mean, and then sometimes she'll sneeze again and go back to this really ditzy, nice blue-haired version. So she has kind of this alternating blue yellow identity as she goes, and we wanted to really capture the different feeling between the two characters, or the two personalities, I guess, no pun intended. And I think we did a good job. We at first had this like we debated a ton for like a long time about how to do launch. You're like, what if she only has like 2 levels and she counts as having 3, and you just like bounce between the 2? Or what if she like flips over? And so we're just coming up with all these ridiculous things, and none of them obviously made any real sense for the game. So we didn't do anything with it. But then we got to this point where I was like, what if she just like alternates? Like, what if she just kind of sneezes back and forth up the stack and just sort of loops it like, like a Dr. Willow or a Zarbon or something like that? And so Zach, one of the other members of the design team here, had kind of this idea that he came up with for Launch's ability to do these sort of triggered level ups. As she developed, the sort of timing on those changed. How that all kind of worked changed a little bit, but the overall identity of her remained. I think she's awesome. So our first level here has a parenthetical that says if Launch is your MP, you can't win by MPPV, which makes sense because she levels like every 2 seconds. For the remainder of the game and at the end of combat, you can't win by MPPV for the remainder of the game, and then at the end of combat, advance personality level. So at the end of every turn, you're going to go up from 1 to 2. Power, prevent all damage from an attack. Not a block, just a prevent. She has literally almost nothing for stages. She's just like a regular human girl. So, first off, nice lady Launch just has a pseudo block. And then end of turn, she's going to sneeze and level up. She goes on to Launch taking a shot. You'll find there is some puns throughout the course of her name, having a blast and shot and stuff that you'll see that'll pay off a little bit as we go. If she's your MP, at the end of combat, advanced personality level, you're going to find a trend there. Power, energy attack. The next attack you perform this combat with blast, shot, missile, or cannon in the title does plus 3 life cards of damage. So this one, starting to get a little more aggressive, has an attack on it. Then your next attack also does a little more. She uses like guns. Like I said, she's just a normal human or whatever, so she uses guns all the time, just shooting dudes left and right. So all of the kind of gun keyworded cards do a little extra damage with her, which is very fun to build a deck around, throwing in your heat-seeking blasts and stuff that you would normally have if you're playing red, like putting in your red sniping shots and red voltage missiles and things like they're just those words exist kind of all over the place in every color, and it's fun to find a way to put them all into one deck for your style and see which ones feel good. And because of it, she feels kind of good in every style because every style has those words. So end of combat, she's going to sneeze, level up again. So then we've got Launch Mystery Missile. If Launch is your MP, at the end of combat, advance a personality level. Still going to have that. Power, stops physical or energy attack. You may search your life deck for a card with blast, shot, missile, or cannon in the title and discard it. So again, back to the nice friendly Launch. Doesn't do an attack here. She's just got now she's got an Omni block instead of like a pseudo Omni. And she goes and grabs a card, puts in the discard pile. Now, there are card effects and stuff that will let you, dig cards out of the discard pile, so it's not like you're losing it or whatever. So even if you're just on this level, there's still plenty of kind of interactions you can do with something like that. You've just got to either be, planning ahead or have your deck built to take advantage of that. Then finally, the last sneeze here. Launch Loose Cannon. She's your MP at the end of combat, lower to level 1. You can no longer advance because there's only 4, so she just pops back to blue-haired level 1. So, constant combat power, all of your attacks deal plus 2 life cards of damage. All of them, just period, plus 2 life. Awesome. And then your cards with blast, shot, missile, and cannon in the title gain transform. So now you see the payoff to the level 3 discarding one. You can kind of set up the card that you're going to transform in your next turn. If you want to, make sure that you're going to be able to transform a Krillin's Heat-Seeking Blast or something, go ahead. You can do that. There's a lot of things that you can do with those various keywords. A ton of little combos you can set up. She's cool in, like I said, she's cool in almost every color. She's cool in orange. She's cool in red. She's cool in blue. She's just kind of awesome all over. Leveling back to 1, you can kind of just see how that goes. The one thing that's really nice with launch is that she levels every turn, which means at the end of every combat she's going back to full, so you never get to like enter on her at 0. She's basically immune to beef, which is cool. There's just a lot of like really nice things that come with that, but she's always just in like the literal lowest tier of B possible, so she's always going to take a ton of damage if she gets hit. She's never going to deal a lot with her own physicals, so you're not going to see a lot of those show up. You're going to, especially with the keywords on the cards, it's going to be, you know, more of an energy deck that utilizes resetting your full stage value every turn. She's just really, really fun to use. She's really interesting, doesn't play like a lot of other stacks, and has just been really exciting to see played and to play.
So interesting with launch is a lot of energy decks play a lot of drills. You will obviously not be doing that with launch. Like Derek said about playing different styles, you know, if you notice, Blue Yamcha Spirit Shot from earlier in the set has shot in the title, and Blue Double Blast has blast in the title. Those are two, you know, we call them weapon keywords that plus with a good PUR on a lot of these levels, it means that launch can be a good PUR deck personality. Red has a bunch of good weapon cards, and as Derek mentioned, so does orange. The only deck I found that I did not love her in was black. I don't think that black is quite as good as the other colors with launch, but anytime you got an MP that can fit into 3 styles that well, it's a good spot to be in. Another thing I noticed in testing launch and watching one of our regulars play very well with launch in main event 2 this year, she is the best Hercules Dream Sequence personality basically that there is, other than the Z guys. She is super, super low B, which means Hercules Dream Sequence is basically always turned on. Even if your opponent is Master Roshi, your Hercules Dream Sequence is going to be turned on, which is great, you know, because as I said, she can't use drills and things like that. So having, you know, basically 2 non-combat stop alls is very, very powerful. Launch is a great MP. She's real good to play if you're like a beginner to the energy decks, or you struggle a little bit, because her leveling at the end of combat and the stage gain from that is very beneficial. I think she's a little bit more difficult to deck build with because of that, but if you do deck build with her correctly, you'll get a massive payoff, because she takes advantage of her stages better than almost anybody else in the game. Launch has been a great stack. She's a fun stack to play with. If you have not tried her out, you should definitely get some games in.
Highly, highly recommend launch.
Okay, so our other full MP stack of the set is Hachiyak. So his level 1 is Hachiyak Android Archive. So you'll notice that Hachiyak is an android. Therefore, he is able to use the android synergies and count as being an android. So he is in B all the way, which is, you know, it's not great, but it is what it is. His PUR is 2. And his level 1 has a constant that at the end of the discard step, if you have no cards in your hand, you may draw a card. The first time you pass each combat, gain 2 anger. If your opponent is Saiyan Heritage, gain 3 anger instead. So you'll also notice, if you know the history of the lore and of Hachiyak, Hachiyak hates the Saiyans. So he will get an added bonus on all of his levels if your opponent is Saiyan Heritage. So that's kind of a neat effect. It's just kind of a lore-based thing, but it's definitely super cool. The other important thing with this is his goal at level 1 is obviously just to get to level 2. He does not want to be on level 1 very long. You can pass at any point in combat to get the 2 anger. So you don't have to wait until the combat's over. You can enter combat and pass to gain your 2 anger immediately if you want to. Like, there's a ton of ways you can use that successfully. The last thing I want to point out is at the end of the discard step, if you have no cards in your hand, you may draw a card. If your opponent goes first, you can draw a card at the end of their discard step. Period. So it just says if you have no cards in your hand at the end of the discard step. So when your opponent draws his 3 cards and, you know, plays his non-combat and passes and discards and rejuvenates, you can draw a card, and then you can draw your 3 for your turn, and then on your first turn you're going to have 4 cards, and maybe you're ready to enter from there. So it's just something to keep in mind.
It's also the end of the discard step, so it gets around things like Black Weakness Drill. Your opponent weakness drills at the start of the discard step. They pay their stage, you discard your hand, you're like, alright, I guess. And then end of discard step, draw a card.
So then we move to level 2, Hachiyak Android Activated. So this is when Hachiyak gets some power. He's in C most of the way, D at the top, which is great. 3 PUR, which is pretty good. So you'll see the theme behind Hachiyak with this power. In your next attack or attack phase, perform a physical attack doing plus 5 stages damage. If your opponent's MP is Saiyan Heritage, this attack does 10 power stages damage instead. Raise your anger 1. So one of the things with Hatchiyak is that he's slow. He's a really slow personality. He takes his time with his attacks. His attacks are very calculated. So he is going to activate his ability and then actually perform the attack in your next phase. This can be useful for things like, Goldos Time Freeze that we talked about earlier, or various effects like that. But what it also does is it kind of, it shows your opponent what's coming. If your opponent is, a Saint Heritage personality and they know you're going to hit them for 10 next turn and they can't stop it, then maybe they got to throw their energy attack now so that way they can get it in before they get beat. So it does kind of open you up a little bit that your opponent's going to know what's coming. But again, there's a little bit of anger on the card. He's got a decent power level, and physical +5 is nothing to scoff at. So then we move to level 3, Hatchiyak Android Anger. This is when he starts to power up pretty good. He gets all the way to E. He's got a power rating of 4. His power is in your next attack or attacks phase. Perform an energy that does 10 life cards of damage or pass. If your opponent's MP is Saint Heritage, this attack costs 0 stages to perform. So, same kind of deal. You're going to activate his ability. Your opponent's going to know it's coming. It's an energy for 10. That's a big old energy attack. Your opponent needs to try to knock you to 0 here or 1 above so that you can't perform it. If you can't perform it, you have to pass. Or if your opponent's saying you're going to get to do it for free, so you're just going to drill him for 10 life cards. Again, you'll see the theme with the stack is that Hatchiyak's slow but powerful. So his attacks are going to be very good if they get to go off. So finally, his level 4, Hatchiyak Android Assault. At this level, he's still in E. He's in E for most of the way, and all the way down to C at the bottom, which is still not bad. 5 PUR. In your next attack or attacks phase, perform a physical doing 5+ stages. In the following attack or attacks phase this combat, perform an energy attack doing 10 life cards or pass. If your opponent's MP is Saint Heritage, it costs 0 to perform. So, in this phase, when you get to level 4, he's going to get 2 big attacks off, which is very, very strong. Now, they are going to see it coming. They're going to go in a specific order. But, having this on your MP means that you can play the cards in your hand first if you want to, and then once you and your opponent are kind of down and out card-wise, then you can throw this attack to get 2 free shots at him. The physical +5, again, as we said, is very strong, especially now that he's in E. It's a very, very good power to have, and then the energy for 10 is also quite good. It's going to do a lot of damage, and you still get the free energy if your opponent's Saint Heritage. Overall, Hatchiyak's been a really fun stack to play with. I think that so far I've seen him best in black, but basically you want level or mastery in a style that's going to help you level, because this level 4 is very, very good, and getting up to this level 4 is very strong. He's been good in black and red, and basically any style that's good at leveling him, he's pretty useful in. He's perfectly fine in a hybrid deck. He does a little bit of physical beats, a little bit of energy beats, and just getting the value when your opponent's Saint Heritage has been great. I'll let Derek go into Hatchiyak a little more because I know he's one of Derek's personal favorites, but this is an incredibly good MP stack. It's really complicated to play, but the payoff is there. It's something you want to play a few times. You want to get used to. You don't just want to jump into a tournament blind with this because it is a little difficult to do, but the power is definitely pays off when you do it right.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, you covered it really, really well. The one deck you didn't mention that I really like him in, I really like Blue Hatchiyak. I think the fact that he has delayed effects means that you're getting sort of extra attack or attacks phases out of resolving those, which means Mancha Boost Chokehold, which you're going to play anyway in blue, is going to trigger more times. They're going to burn through stages. That's very welcome and will just be sort of free damage as you extend your turnout, in the same way that Black Goldo's Time Freeze does a similar idea. Chokehold does the same. But as we talked about with blue before, is that a lot of the good blue effects are successful effects, like Chokehold isn't blue, but it's honorary blue for me. The blue chokehold, blue Colossal Throw, blue Energy Throw, things like that are all these sort of if successful effects. So he plays really well in decks, I think, with if successful effects, because now you throw these attacks that have these great if successfuls, and your opponent says oh geez, well I know that I'm going to have to stop one of those to not let that if successful happen. I don't want you to go get another card off of your Colossal Throw, but that means I'm going to have to eat this 10 stage physical attack in the face in my 2 actions from now because I burnt the block on it. I don't want to get leveled, so I have to block this blue Energy Throw. Okay, I guess that burnt my block. and now we go to the level 3 and you hit your energy attack for that fat 10 life cards, and it's like, well, okay, these are really telegraphed moves, but they're super huge, and that's sort of the balancing act of it. But I think the counteract that you can make to that is force your opponent to decide whether or not they want to block these huge damage effects or your like strongest successfuls, and I think that's where a lot of the blue's power lies.
Sure.
So I think he pairs really nice with that color. I just think he's a really fun stack. He's really interesting. The NZ personalities have this stigma about them of being like sort of changing up the way that sort of personalities feel in this game. One of the things that we do when we do make a new stack is we want it to really feel like a new thing that you're getting to do with a character that didn't exist before. If we're going to make a whole new character to play in the game, we want it to feel like there was a reason to do it. So all of the characters that we've made as whole stacks do something like kind of weird. Like Harudagarn's super strange, this guy's strange. Even Launch is like a little weird. Kami's kind of strange with the way that he like moves Dragon Balls around. So like each of the stacks just sort of does things in unique ways that are not kind of typical to some of the standard play patterns. Hatchiak is one of those where you just have to like, oh man, I know next turn he's going to hit me with something giant. What do? Do I end combat? I know I had more stuff I wanted to do this turn before I tried to end combat, but I don't want to get hit with this 10 life cards in the face. I guess I end it now and burn the rest of my hand. You just force your opponent to make these tougher decisions, and I think that's a very cool threat to have on the table, and I think it really embodies like how big of a deal Hatchiak was as an enemy. The delayed attack is like really lore accurate. Nick touched on it, he's just like slow or whatever, but as he's doing on this card here, he like charges these giant attacks, and it like takes him 15 seconds or whatever to do his attack, and that's how Goku realizes that they can beat him. So he kind of captures that element of the movie as the card. I just think he's really fun. He was really fun to design. He went through a huge amount of changes too as we worked on him, but I think I'm really happy with where he ended up. I think if you are interested at all in like a big stompy strong character, he's really fun to use. He plays the android deck kind of unique too. He's got some bigger damage outputs than some of the android decks do. He levels a little better than some of them do, so he's unique in that sense as well. He doesn't have any kind of clause on him that says he can't win by MPPV. He gains a lot of anger, but he doesn't have a level 5, so he can't like auto win those. But if you're in a 1-4 matchup, Hatchiak's very, very strong there, especially against a Saiyan. He gains 3 the first time you pass, anger, whatever. He can level really effectively. Overall, I could gush about Hatchiak for a while. I think he's a really fun addition to the game. He's a super deep cut character that, I think there's some people who just don't even know that he exists. He's from a movie that doesn't get a lot of attention, so it was fun to get to include him in the game. And that takes us then to our final card of the set. Technically not in the set, but honorary inclusion. It was the world champion designed card. In this case, designed by World's finalist for 2024's season, Tim Ludwig. It's Vegeta's Big Bang Attack. Tim loves his Vegeta decks, and he loves his kind of silly combo string decks too, and this leans into all of those things. So it's an energy attack that does 7 life cards of damage. If used by Vegeta, it raises your anger 2 levels. Awesome. If successful, and you have not used the effect of this card to search your life deck this combat, you can then search your life deck for a Vegeta named physical or energy combat card other than this one, place it into your hand. So it's just like a lot of those other Colossal Throw, Axial Kick type cards or whatever, although this one lets you search your deck specifically. That's good because it just gives you, in theory, more options to hit from. Base level, you just get an energy for 7, cost 2, that's good. 2 anger and Vegeta is awesome. So let's talk about some of the things that you can do with this. So if you do an energy for 7, if used by Vegeta, raise your anger 2, cool, you've got 2 anger. If this is successful, you go search your deck for a Gutter Wallop. Okay, cool, that goes to your hand. Then you use your gutter wallop, you look at your opponent's hand, whatever, physical attack, and then you gain 3 anger. You get a whole level off of the sort of combo string that this card set up. There's plenty of other things you can do too. And little used purpose for this card is that it can grab a Vegeta physical energy combat card, not a attack. So you can use this to grab like Vegeta's physical stance, which feels really, really good in the windows where you need that. If you are facing a physical deck and you can lead on this card, hit them for some likely damage, and then go search out your stop all. That can be the difference between winning and losing a whole turn. I think this card is awesome. It's super, super strong, but I think it's a cool design. It went through obviously a number of balancing tweaks before we found like exactly where it felt kind of good, but Tim's like general vision really remained. And I think it's cool. It doesn't have to just be used by Vegeta. There are a ton of decks that run Vegeta named cards. If you just use this to go grab a Vegeta's Jolting Slash, if you use this to go grab a Vegeta's a Vegeta's physical stance, you can grab all sorts of weird stuff with this. I think it's cool. I love this card. I think it's the right idea for like winner designed cards to just make something that maybe we wouldn't have made exactly of our own accord. I don't know that we were like, yeah, Vegeta needs one of these, but it's like fan favorite kind of hype thing. It's a super famous Vegeta moment. It's cool that he gets his big signature move and it kicks ass. Awesome card. Well done, Tim.
Yeah, this card's great. Obviously, any Vegeta deck's going to play this card. It helps with the kind of Vegeta's kind of a semi-MPPV personality versus his freestyle deck that's very good, and leveling him to get to settle down or Last Prince or something is very good. You can play this in just a generic energy deck because of how good Jolting Slash is. If you're going to do that, I would recommend adding Vegeta Suppressed Defense or something, one or two of Omni Block type card. There's also some just cards like, I think it's called Vegeta that's a combat. So there's just a couple like random cards you could put in, like Derek had mentioned, that are pretty useful Vegeta name cards. Vegeta has a lot of name cards in this game. So it's, there's a lot of options. And if you're Vegeta, you get to throw in like Blank's left leg check and some cards like that, which would be super beneficial to get sometimes. So, overall, obviously, if you're Vegeta, you're going to play for this. If you're not Vegeta, there are still some spots where you're going to want this. It's a cool effect. It's a strong card. Energy for 7's not bad. And like I said, just the ability to do an energy for 7 and then go get a Jolting Slash, it's just good enough. Like, that's good enough for you to play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This card's super sweet. It's a fun winter card. I love that we do these. They're a really cool way to keep like the NZ cards in tune with the what our world champions want. And so I love it. That's it though. That's the end of NZ Set 7 Toughest in the World. Thanks again for sticking around for part 2. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, make sure you do so. A ton of good content there too. We'll move on to our next set review, NZ Set 8, Grand Adventure. And that one, at least at the time of recording this one, is not quite out yet. So our NZ Set 8 review, for now, I think is going to be a little bit different. I think we're going to more, as opposed to talking about how the cards have done and like where they're not being played enough or whatever, that one I think we're going to talk a little bit more about like what we're expecting to come from the set and what we think you guys might end up doing with it. So that one will be fun to make too in its own lane. Similar set review kind of concept, but less of the this is how it's performed in the meta, and more of this is what we think it's going to do. But that should come shortly enough. For now, thanks for sticking around and watching another one of these, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you guys.